Hello students, a very good morning. So students, in this class let's discuss some important questions regarding to chapter semiconductor devices, and up to now even we have revised our chapter, and as in chapter some of the topics that we have had to study that we have just covered now. And one was topic started from the band picture of just a distinction of the materials based on a lot of things like free electron model, conductivity, resistivity, band model. Then we had one for the semiconductor devices and how many types of semiconductor materials we have. Then after using that material we have made diode, and then application of diodes we have studied in which one Zener diode, LEDs, photodiode and solar cell. This is all our content of semiconductor devices chapter that we have known up to now. So let's see here the problems that is asked. So problems are related to concepts basically from this chapter that is asked, because here not numerical problems are that kind of important from this question chapter. Only up to now conceptual problems or constructions, working based problems from different topics that is asked. So first question that is basically asked in examination, that distinction of materials by on the basis of band picture of solids. So what is now the band picture of solids, and how can we distinguish the materials based on that one? Before that one, as we know, materials are of three types. We can classify them in three types, like conductors, semiconductor and insulators. So conductors are those materials whose conductivity is very high or resistivity is very low. Also we have differentiated that even in our previous chapter in term 1, that is on the basis of free electron model. So if they are conductors are those material for which the number of free electrons are very large, and insulators are materials where very few number of electrons are available for conduction. That's why conductivity is very low, and also resistivity is very high. And semiconductors are those materials whose range is like between conductor and insulator. Now for the band picture here, as up to now we have studied the concept of spectrum. For that one we have seen normally electron is lying in its ground state or normal state. So that ground or normal state is also known as its valence state and valence shell. We are knowing it by this one. It means if we will take the example of suppose sodium here. So for the sodium here we can see 3s1 state is its normal state, because this electron that 3s1 electron here, this is always has tendency to get free, so that octant of atom can be completed. This can get or achieve stability. So for that one, as this electron that will obviously participate in most of the reactions, this will be get free first, and that's why this cell is known as now valence cell. Even inner core electrons along with this one, like the 2p, 2s and 1s electron, they are also participating, but they needed greater amount of energy than this electron. So we are calling this cells as valence cell, or this state, if we will take the energy of the state and represent that in forms of energy level, then that is known as the valence state. So if this valence state has varying energy, like for n is equal to 3, if we will see, then for that one we have S, P and D states. So if we will combine these all energies, so a range of the energy we can get, and that is called now the band structure. So here first normally the electron has tendency to lie in its valence shell, or that is known as also by the name valence band here. Next, if this valence electron will get energy from outside, from by any of the source, like by thermal agitation, or if we are supplying electrical energy, any kind of energy if we will supply to it, if this electron will get sufficient energy to make transition from 3s states to like 3p states, 4s states, 3d states and other excited states, because these states are at normal conditions, they are empty states. So they are known as excited states. Why we are calling it? Because whenever this electron will achieve energy, or will just to get energy from any outside source, then that time it will go either of them in these states here. So these all states are just called excited states that are always empty at normal state. We are taking the energy range of these all. So obviously their energy will start from this state and this will go to the infinite. And also we know that there is some energy separation or energy gap between 3s state and 3p state. So we can represent this state that is empty at normal temperature pressure, that is called excited states, or we are calling it by conduction band here. So this is now well known concept for you already, as in spectral concept we have studied, but there we were just studying whenever electron is making transition from air to air, and if it is returning back, then which kind of energy it is emitting there. But here only we are denoting these states by one of the state or one of the band that is representing energy of all these excited states, that is called conduction band, and where electron normally lies, or it in normal condition it always tends to lie, that is called its valence state. Now whenever the valence electron that is getting energy, it is going to any of the excited state, it means that electron is making transition from these normal states to these excited states. So in terms of electronics, we are calling this process as conduction process whenever electron is making transition from valence band to conduction band. So this is now our band picture of solids, where we are taking the concepts of valence band and conduction band, and also the energy gap between conduction band and valence band. This energy you can see, because as we know, according to Bohr model, electron can only exist in those orbits for which angular momentum of the electron, that is integral multiple of h upon 2 pi. So if electron is not satisfying that condition in that orbit, it cannot lie. So it means that electron can just do its transition in only certain states. It means that electron cannot lie in between conduction and valence band. Either it will be existed in valence band, or it will go to the conduction band. So this is only two possibilities for this one. It means this state is forbidden for this. So that's why we are calling this whole gap by the forbidden energy gap. This is the name of this one. So this is our now the band picture of solid here. Now let's see how can we differentiate our materials by this band picture of solid. So the first material we have, that is conducting material. So conductors can be classified or can be defined on the basis of band picture. As these materials we know that is well known for their conductivity. So they are well known for conductivity. It means that large number of electrons are making transition from valence band to conduction band very easily. So here that possibility, even we are supplying very small amount of energy. So a small amount of energy, if electrons are needed to make transition from its normal states to excited state, so it means the forbidden energy gap between valence band and conduction band, that is very small for the case of conductors. So this gap you can see, even sometimes in some atoms these gaps are overlapped also. Even it means electrons can be can make transitions for very small amount of energy, even by thermal agitation they can go there. So this is our property of now conductor, where easily electrons can make transitions. So if we will see in data order, then for the data this forbidden energy band gap, that is nearly 0.1 electron volt. This is the order for the conductors. Next one, the second type of materials, that is insulator materials we have. So as by definition we know insulators are those materials whose conductivity is very low. So it means here for electron it is very hard to go to the excited states or make transition from valence state to conduction band. So it means the gap between valence band and conduction band, that is very high. That's why even on supplying energy from outside, electron is not making transition here. So for the case of insulator, if you will see the forbidden energy band gap for this one case, that is greater than 5 electron volt. So in data order it means we need a large amount of energy for the conduction in this case of materials. So we can classify them on the basis of the forbidden energy band gap between these two bands. Next and third one, the material we have, that is semiconductor materials. So obviously up to now we know by the definition semiconductor materials are those whose conductivity is lying between insulator and conductor. So it means now the electrons are here available for the, to do conduction from valence band to conduction band, but also that conduction is not as easy as for the conductor. So here the forbidden energy band gap, that is less than the insulator but greater than the conductor. But for the data basis, if we will start to see for the semiconductor materials, then different semiconductor materials are showing different forbidden energy band gap. Like if we will go for the germanium, then it is having 0.7 electron volt to forbidden energy band gap. Means 1 electron is needed to go from valence to conduction band, only 0.7 electron volt energy. While in the case of silicon, if we will see, then it needs 1.1 electron volt energy. For the case of gallium arsenide, if we will see, then or gallium phosphide, it is taking 5 electron volt energy. So different semiconductor materials are taking different energy, so that we can just put them in the range of 0.1 electron volt to even 5.5 electron volt. So 5.5 electron volt is energy that is needed for the conduction in insulator, and 0.1 electron volt, that is energy needed for the conduction in conductor. We can put semiconductor materials range in between this one. So all the materials that are lying in between that is behaving like the semiconductor material. So this is our first classification on the, according to the band picture of solids for the conductor, insulator and semiconductor. Next one, after this, the next question is here. How many types of semiconductor materials we have? So basically semiconductor materials are of two types. First one is pure semiconductor and second is doped semiconductor. Also we are calling the pure semiconductor by the name as intrinsic semiconductor. So pure or intrinsic semiconductor, basically the fourth group elements are called pure semiconductor, but not all fourth group elements are for this one, like carbon that is making covalent bond, that is also not the example of this one. Again germanium and silicon are example of these, that is pure semiconductor, because they have 4 electrons in last orbit. That is even size of the germanium and silicon that started to increase. The electrons can be loosened from there, even they can accept 4 electrons, but that is not easy to lose that 4 electrons. So they have behavior of the semiconductor. It means that conduction is not easy but not as tough. But after this one, lead and tin, that also we will see they are behaving like the conductor, not the semiconductor. So again in fourth group, not all elements but some of the elements are behaving like semiconductor. But at normal room temperature and pressure, if we will see, germanium and silicon, they are also working just like the insulator, because they needed a lot of energy there for the conduction. So how can we convert our semiconductor materials into conductor for the just conduction of electrons from there? So for conduction case, we need to convert our semiconductor materials into the materials where we can have number of charge carriers. Because if in the case of conductor, we will see conductor have large number of free electrons, and that free electrons are carrying electrical energy with them, and that's why very easily current can flow through these materials. So if we will convert our semiconductor materials also in those kind of materials, then easily they can do the conduction process. So to make this one, or to just to make free electrons in semiconductor materials, methods we are applying here, that is called doping method. And in the case of doping method, these fourth group elements are mixed with the third group elements, or also we can use fifth group element. So here when we will mix them with third group elements, then different kind of charge carrier will produce, and while mixing with fifth group element, another different kind of charge carriers we can see. So now the differentiation here, that also we can see from the conductor. Like in conductor only one kind of charge carrier we have, that is electron. Here two types of charge carriers we can produce in the semiconductor materials. One is hole and second is electron. Now so let's see our second type of semiconductor materials, that is called extrinsic semiconductor material, or also we are calling it doped semiconductor material or impure semiconductor material. So this is name for this one. Next in this section, as we have to mix impurity of third group element or fifth group element in fourth group element. So if germanium, suppose for example we have selected, so germanium has normally 4 electrons in last orbit, and any third group element has 3 electrons in its last orbit. So if for example aluminium is selected here, so 3 electrons of aluminium, they will make covalent bonding with 3 electrons of germanium. But one electron is not getting electron to make bond with this one. So this place is behaving just like the vacancy here or deficiency of electron, and it has always tendency to accept one electron so that it can complete its octet. So its behavior is just like the same as positive charge is behaving to accept any electron, means it has attractive power to accept electrons. So this is now the vacancy that is created here. This is known as hole. Now the first kind of charge carrier is produced by mixing impurity of third group in our elements, that is fourth group element is known as now hole, and this hole of the material is now known as p-type semiconductor material. Second type of semiconductor material and charge carrier can be produced when we are mixing the impurity of fifth group. So again, as germanium as the example we have taken, so again 4 electrons of the germanium we have, and if we will use fifth group element to mix as impurity in this one, suppose phosphorus is used here, so it has 5 electrons, so 4 electrons of phosphorus that can be easily used to make covalent bond. Now octet of germanium is completed, but one electron, additional electron is here to phosphorus. That additional electron is loosely bonded by the nucleus of germanium, but that is not completely free. Whenever only small amount of energy will be supplied to this atom, then this electron can be freed from here, and always this atom has tendency to donate this electron. So it means now this atom's behavior is just like that first group elements are behaving. So we can easily convert our fourth group elements that are where conduction was not easy, we can convert them into easy conduction method, that is we are converting our semiconductor materials by doping process into conductor material. So here one more thing that we can do and why we are converting them into conductor, already we have conductors, why we are not using them. So reason is that we can control here number of charge carriers by using the doping process. Suppose if we have to only create 10 number of electrons so that we can get only a small amount of current, so we can reduce our doping concentration there. So by increasing or decreasing doping concentration, we can easily control current from here or voltage that is produced from here. So that's why semiconductor materials are used in variety of applications in our electronic devices, where even a small range of current to large range of current, up to that one we can use them. So this is our benefit over the conductor that we are doing with the help of semiconductors. So these are now the two types of semiconductor materials. The second one is known as now n-type, when we are using pentavalent impurities, and the first one that is known as p-type, when we are using trivalent impurities. Next after this question is what is now p-n junction diode, and define the two types of characteristics, forward and reverse biasing. So first one, p-n junction diode is what? First, a diode, as it means where two terminals we have, and p and n two types of materials for the semiconductors we have. If we will join these two types of materials by end to end, then that time the combinations that we are getting is known as p-n junction diode. One more thing here, p and n type materials, we cannot join them physically by, and whether the polishing is correct, even that time also we cannot join them. Only we are using some basic methods to join p and n type materials, and sometimes also we are using a p type vapor, and in that p type vapor by doping process we are making n type in the same material. So this is also one of the process to make p-n junction diode. So by using only some suitable Sujan materials we are making p-n junction diode. So one of the conceptual question is also asked to, can we simply join p and n type material to construct p-n junction? So we cannot join that one, because that time irregularities will be formed at the junction and the current will not flow easily from p type materials to n type materials. So p-n junction diode is what? Suppose this is our p type material and now this is our n type material. So when p and n type materials are joined by this way, this is end to end we have joined them, then this is now known as the constructions that we can see, this is known as p-n junction diode. So whenever we are just connecting them, then as we know in p type materials, holes as the majority carriers we have, and electrons as the minority carriers. As in classes we have discussed already what is majority and minority carriers, what are donor atom and acceptor atoms, so that is I think clear to you. And here we can use a symbolic diagram again for the p type materials and n type materials. So in p type materials, atom that has behavior to just accept one of the electrons, so we are denoting it by negative, and then one of the hole is attached to it that has tendency to just like the positive charge. So this is now the showing our hole of the acceptor atom. So number of acceptor atoms we have here in p type material. Similarly in n type materials, as additional electron we have, so atom has tendency to donate that electron, so that's why it is known as donor atom, and can be represented by this positive sign, and one of the electron is associated with it. Now when we are joining these two, as this hole has tendency to accept one electron and this electron has tendency to just free from this atom, so that's why this electron will be attracted towards this one. This will start to move and this will fill this vacancy. So whenever this electron will fill this vacancy, then that time this vacancy will be disappeared as well as electrons from there. Now these two atoms, that is acceptor and donor atoms, they are converted into ions, and as ions are immobile, so they will accumulate it at the junction here. Now after accumulation of these ions, again when this electron will starts to move towards the junction to fill up this vacancy, this negative ion will start to repel it. Similarly this positive ion will start to repel it. Means no further electron can fill up the vacancy of the hole, and no conduction, no current we will get here. While this electron is filling vacancy to this point, the electronic energy gets free, and that we are obtaining in the form of current. So as conduction stopped here after making this region, this is called also depletion region, where these ions are depleted, and due to that one conduction current started to stop. So again to get conduction we can have only two choices. Either we can reduce this depletion region by applying or by supplying some thermal energy, and that time if we will use thermal energy, then definitely there will be some loss to our this device. And second method is that we can use electrical method here. So in electrical method, battery can be connected to these two ends, and by using battery we can reduce this depletion region, and this is our now the task for the conduction. Means for the conduction, this electron has to fill up this vacancy so that energy can be free, and that can be obtained in the forms of conduction current. So this is our whole of the work for this. So first method is here, as battery has two terminal, positive and negative terminal. So either this P side can be connected to positive terminal of the battery, or negative terminal of the battery. So first method that we can see where P is connected to positive terminal and N is connected to negative terminal. This one is known as now forward biasing. The reverse biasing that we are calling whenever we are connecting P with the negative terminal of the battery and N with the positive terminal of the battery. So these are now the two ways to connect our PN junction diodes and to do the biasing, and by using these biasing processes we can reduce this depletion region and then conduction current can be obtained easily. So rest of the question let's discuss in next class. For today let's end our class here, students.